Cutters, Degrassi, Unpopular Opinions. Hey there, hello, ho there, it's Jeff Cutter Diamond. Welcome you to another Degrassi Unpopular Opinion. And this one is not really my own creation. This is a Reddit post that was brought up a couple days ago by someone named Buggrave420. Now, for context, this is being taped on August 21st, 2021, so 3 days ago, which is the 18th. This girl put this up and said this. So I've always had a little bit of different take on Time Stands Still and the Spinner fallout than other viewers. Fair enough. Like anyone, I think what Spinner did by blaming Jimmy and taking part in the prank was shitty. I think he would have deserved to be suspended half speed and lose friends over it. He deserved it. Yeah. I don't agree when people assign blame for the shooting on Spinner. He had no way to know the gravity of his actions or the potential for violence. They're all kids, so I understand Jimmy and his friends blaming him and hating him. Anger is natural. But personally, I find Hatzalakos' treatment of Spinner to be bizarre and cruel from an adult. Spinner didn't escape feeling responsible and hating himself. His grief and trauma were complicated by his role. For Hatzalakos to have no comprehension of this, never recommending to talk to a counselor or advocating for switching schools, is really nuts and vindictive towards a teenager. Rick is the only one ultimately responsible for shooting Jimmy and traumatizing the school. Everyone else just did some dumb shit that otherwise would have been fine if Rick wasn't psycho. If anything, Raj is more to blame. Thoughts? So, I wonder if I did. I don't remember if I made something like this. No, I don't think I contributed to it. So, I'll tell you my thoughts about this. Okay, so Good Girl 1 said, I cannot agree more. The show didn't show us that Rick was having signs of being a school shooter, other than being bullied, and I believe he said the world would be better without them, or something threatening. Did we know beforehand Rick could access a gun? Nope. Did we know that Rick could load and fire a gun? Nope. Did we ever see Rick make a hit list? Nope. So if us didn't know any of this information, how would Spinner have known? Okay, so that's a good point, but the problem is Rick kind of made a hit list. Well, Rick's first list of girls he would rather be with, and that was Emma's on the list. But then he tells Emma she's made his list. Rick probably did make a hit list. Because, as he tells Emma, you just made my list. Not girls to kiss, because he already did kiss her for the list. But basically, he decided that people who will pay for hurting him. And someone said that they're in their 30s, but one thing that gets forgotten when discussing Degrassi is that they're just kids. With the exception of some heinous actions in the show, as of Rick shooting and JT being stabbed, most of this is in hindsight. In hindsight, it's forgivable. It's kids messing up as kids do and learning from it. I know it's fun to rag on the characters, but you gotta stop. Musical Memer, who does a lot of comments on my stuff, says, quote, I mean, it's true that if Spinner and Jay hadn't put the blame on Jimmy, then Rick probably wouldn't have shot Jimmy. Probably would have not shot anybody because he was calming down after Paige showed sympathy for him. But you're right, that if Rick wasn't a violent jerk, no one would have got shot, period. No matter what anyone else said, it would not have happened. Spinner, Jay, and Alex were indirectly involved in it in a way, but none of them could have anticipated Jimmy getting shot. It's not their fault. And I hate to agree with Jay on anything, but what he said about the blame being shifted towards Spinner because Rick was dead, I think he had a point there. Spinner lost a lot of friends, but I don't see the entire school turning on him if Rick was still alive, because people would have been more focused on what Rick did, which they should be, because he was the one who shot somebody. The point that I think Memer is trying to say is that, yeah, Jay did make that statement that they were looking for someone as a scapegoat for the Rick situation because, Rick was dead. And, Jay obviously knew that Raj was not the principal anymore, so they couldn't blame Raj for anything. So, yeah. They didn't anticipate Jimmy being shot. They didn't anticipate Spinner I mean, like, Rick having a gun. Accomplished Cup said, there's a lot that goes into it. Personally, I think Rick deserved to be bullied. He beat Terry and then he almost killed her. And he ran away and left her to die even though she was unresponsive. The pain of others was too much. But Jimmy contributed just as much as Spinner. He bullied Rick all the way up to the trivia show. That's why it was so easy for Rick to believe it was Jimmy's idea. And it's weird how Alex never got in trouble. She set the prank up. She was just as responsible. She didn't get expelled, and Jimmy was friends with her. Jay and Spinner got expelled, and Alex should have got expelled too. Personally, I think the fact that Spinner told Hatzalakos what happened and actually felt guilt and remorse should have allowed him to stay if he went to sensitivity training and be suspended for a while. Rick should not have been allowed back to Degrassi because he was a wild card. Abusive people don't deserve respect. Well, there's a lot to focus on this thing. And yeah, like Jimmy himself said he felt bad because when he came back to the school in his wheelchair, he told Spinner that I was just as responsible for hurting Rick as much as you did. Well, right up to when Rick convinced Jimmy that, him being bullied is bad, and now with Toby being probably a target as well, he didn't deserve it. And Jimmy switched sides, and that ticked off Jay Spinner and Alex. Like, Jimmy felt guilt about his role, and he should have. And of course, Alex got in no trouble because Spinner and Jay both didn't pin Alex. I think in a way that, well, one thing is that Alex had no idea about Spinner and Jay setting up Rick to go after Jimmy. Well, they were in the bathroom. And number two is that, Jay probably had a hard on for Alex and didn't want to burn her. Although Alex burned Jay. And they said suspended for 3 months. In Canada, if you're suspended for more than 10 days of offense, you're basically expelled. Someone said Miss Hatzalakos always showed to have horrible judgment in general, not to mention how she enabled her sociopath son Peter. And she did Spinner dirty. Yeah, like, I'll talk about that in my opinion. Someone said, this is a classic issue of the blame the bully, not the bullied after a shooting. It's important to encourage kids not to bully each other, but at the end of the day, it skirts around placing responsibility for someone who did a shooting. The issue isn't that Spinner pranked Rick, it's that Rick showed signs of being unwell for months and nobody did anything about it because they didn't realize how serious mental health issues could be. It's that the school let Rick come back without having to do therapy or go to an evaluation. Spinner needed to be punished for the prank because it wasn't okay. Just like Rick needs to be held responsible. Spinner has to be responsible. However, the way everyone treated him was excessive. I'd say the guy you pranked shooting your friend before trying to shoot another friend and getting out in a selling struggle was a pretty decent punishment. Someone else said Rick was going to shoot someone anyway. It would have been Paige, but because Paige was sympathetic towards Rick about the pain and feathers, he didn't do it. If he hadn't heard Jay and Spinner's conversation, it was going to end differently. Spinner did play a part, but he didn't know Rick had a gun, and Alex should have confessed in the aftermath. She got away with it. That's right, because Rick was going after Paige first. He didn't have the idea. Well, anyway, Spinner and Jay didn't have the idea to go to try to force Jimmy to face Rick's wrath until Spinner did the stupid thing by basically telling Jimmy all about his role. He was bragging about it. Spinner bragged about it, and that was terrible because Jimmy then could have used that as a way to get back at Spinner for all he did. And that's why Spinner and Jay got Jimmy's name because, Jimmy was going to narc on Spinner. And Spinner realized he just screwed up, especially with the fact in the deleted scene he bumped into Radich and got in trouble with him. Yeah, Paige was first on the list because Rick needed to shoot Paige because, Paige spread the anti-Rick rhetoric and everyone believed it. But when she made him stand down, he wasn't going to shoot someone. He put the gun in his locker and he decided to clean up in the bathroom. Anyway, it's tricky, Sun Green said. Rick was clearly unstable. He had rage issues before he was the victim of bullying. Had he been just a random victim who had never done anything to provoke his tormentors, which he didn't until the spray paint, I would have been sympathetic to him. I'm not saying I would have thought that anyone deserved to be shot, but I felt that the bully shouldered some of the blame. There's only so much a person can take, and not much one person can do to defend themselves against multiple bullies day in and day out. Something's going to break. On the other hand, while it doesn't justify what he did, Spitter was acting out of anger for what Rick did to Terry. He's only human. Of course he's going to be angry at the person who hurt someone he cared about. Jimmy and Emma too, but they both forgave Rick, or at least decided that their own actions weren't helping matters any. And that was the second part. That was true. I do think Spitter deserved to be punished for his part in the prank. Like I was upset, Alex should have been too, but neither Spinner or Jay told on her. Hatsuko's was over the top. She was cold and nasty to Spinner when he tried to make amends and wanted to come back to school, but she's a horrible character anyway. And someone said, well, Spinner got the brunt of the fellow and Alex got nothing. She was just as bad and carried out the prank. But as I said that, they decided not to blame Alex because, Alex wasn't responsible for being there when Spinner and Jay told Rick in earshot that Jimmy was the one who did the prank. Well, someone said that the expulsion was appropriate and all that, but he didn't deserve to be responsible for the violent actions of others. So, yeah, that's a tough one. But here's how I take a look at what Hatsalakos did about Spinner. And, the Social Disease podcast did this too, that it seemed that Spinner didn't really understand the gravity of his actions. Like, here's the thing. Spinner was going to confess to the cops after the lockdown ended, but Jay basically told him or bullied him not to tell anyone. And Spinner says, my best friend is hurt. Either outcome, he was your best friend. Basically, like, Jimmy's dead, then Spinner and Jimmy can't be friends. And that if Jimmy's alive, he won't want to be best friends with Spinner. Jay was right about that. Anyway, Spinner says, we might have killed Jimmy. We didn't do anything. Of course, it was revealed that Jimmy was still alive, and Spinner probably went, whew. But, Spinner stayed away from Jimmy in the hospital and all that. His guilt riddled him and all that. I mean, I think that maybe in a sense that if he did visit Jimmy in the hospital and try to talk to him and all that, he might have alleviated his guilt. But then again, Spinner felt that Jimmy needed help, and Jimmy was really bad mouthing himself. So Spinner's decided to spend time trying to help Jimmy get better with things. And it worked in a sense, but then Spinner decided to tell Jimmy about everything. And that's when the school basically turned on him. Like, the students were shunning him. Jay was of no help, basically saying that Spinner was stupid for telling everyone that he did the paint feathers prank. He didn't really see the paint and feathers. Well, no, he kind of did, and then he said to Jimmy that in the bathroom we convinced Rick that you were behind this whole paint and feathers thing. And then, Jimmy says, then I got shot. So Spinner drunkenly crashes Jimmy's welcoming party, and Jimmy talks to him, and Jimmy says that, a best friend wouldn't leave his friend, a best friend wouldn't do this to me, that left me high and dry, that Rick could have killed me and all that. And you should not have told anybody. But Spinner had to, because if it got out to the police, he was dead duck. And Jimmy also said that the only reason why you wanted to help me when I got back to Degrassi was to alleviate your own guilt, because you knew that you were going to crack. Jump off a bridge. I don't care about you anymore. So that's when Spinner decides to go to Hatsalakos and tells Hatsalakos about his things. And, Hatsalakos throws the book at him. Now, I think it was doable because of the zero tolerance policy, But I'm thinking to myself, a zero tolerance policy? Why are they saying that now? Like in season 4. Wasn't there a zero tolerance policy from the first few seasons? I guess not. But my guess is that the zero tolerance policy was a punishment for Degrassi. I think that the school board was punishing Degrassi for what happened with Rick. So, because of the bullying that Rick endured, so they basically did a zero tolerance policy, and Hatzalakos had to enact it and basically expel Spinner and Jay for that matter too. Well, Spinner told on Jay. I mean, her talk about the fact that one boy's in a grave and one boy's in a wheelchair because of your selfish actions. Like, why is she blaming Spinner for how, like, Rick being in the grave and Jimmy being in a wheelchair? Like, that sounds unreasonable and all that. Like, Spinner didn't know about this, and I think that the Social Disease podcast said that Spinner just didn't understand the gravity of his problems when he said, "Oh, it's probably just a bit mild suspension," but no, it's an expulsion, zero tolerance. Well, that didn't work out long because Peter would have been zero tolerance himself out of Degrassi in season 5. There have been so many things, but zero tolerance is not really there, which kind of ticks me off. Hatzalakos had a right to be angry over what Spinner did and did not do, and expelling him was the right thing to do. She let him come back in season 5, but Spinner was on a short leash, and Spinner took it like a man and made sure that everyone forgave him by the end of the season. Even Jimmy starts to talk to him. Spinner made it a mission. He didn't force people to forgive him, kind of like what Rick was trying to do. He knew he had to let the chips go flat, or whatever you want to call it. He knew he was going to have to go through hell in a handbasket, but he did it. He pulled through. And let's not forget the fact that, Spinner redeemed himself. Jay, in a sense, did redeem himself, but I think it was after Spinner blasted Jay and broke up their friendship that Jay knew he had to do something. Maybe to get Spinner back as a friend. What a dick. But, I digress. The key factor here, guys, is that the school was not happy with what Spinner's rule and all that, and maybe overreacted. Well, yeah, in a sense. But you gotta also remember that possibly Hatzalakos was thinking that way because of, like, the public shaming. Maybe the school board shamed them into much, and, Rick's family kind of got a settlement, but they wanted answers, and, Spinner being in trouble. I mean, yeah, the school board probably had to pay a hefty price for Rick's death, in a sense. Like, he was a bully, but he was being bullied, and no one did a thing about it. I think the Murrays may have got some settlement, but I think they would not have gotten everything they asked for because, after all, Rick shot somebody, and the fact of the matter is that, Rick was his own worst enemy. If Rick never reported these things, if Rick had reported the torture and all that, I think the school board would have done something about it. And Rick would have won. And besides, Rick retaliated. I know his plan was to basically say that, by spray painting the X's on his tormentor's cars, that said that you think it's easy? Try the shoe on the other foot. But that just made Spinner, Jay, and Alex more angry and wanted to kill Rick, in a sense. So, yeah, I can't blame the school for that, for being a bit angry over what Spinner did. But the fact of the matter is that, the statement of your actions have put a boy in a wheelchair and a boy in a grave, that's victim blaming and all that. You can't blame Spinner for that. Rick was his own worst enemy. That's why he's the worst person in this whole storyline. And not Jay, not Raditch, not Alex, not even Spinner. Case closed. Anyway, I'm Jeff Diamond. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.